Welcome back to Podcast Recovery. We are your hosts, David O. and Eric V. Oh my God, I totally just...
Rude.
I overtalked
so
Eric.
So rude.
It's
fine. We're going.
We're keeping it.
It's fine. I would win in the wild. It's fine.
Okay. Today we are joined by our guest, Dan. How are you doing today?
Doing great. How about yourself, guys?
Good.
I'm doing well, man.
Good.
Where are you from, Dan?
Right outside of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, in a little town called Quakertown.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. And when were you first...
East Coast.
Yeah. When were you first introduced to recovery?
2014, actually coming up on 5 years on April 26th.
Nice.
Awesome.
Man, congratulations. And how long have you been clean?
I've been clean since April 26, 2014. I'd say minus one slip up that I had.
Mm-hmm. All right.
That's
But
awesome.
otherwise, been able to maintain that sobriety.
All right. Well, that's awesome, man. And without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to you to share your story with us. So take it away.
Yeah, sure. So, as I said, I'm coming from my 5 years being clean. Prior to getting clean in 2014, I was pretty much an addict. Late 2008 through 2014, a pretty heavy drinker.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, got introduced to Vicodin from a neighbor on one of my drunken nights, and I ended up taking a couple. Now, it wasn't the first time I ever tried it, so I didn't think it was that big of a deal, but for whatever reason, it really stuck with me. And I remember as time went on, I started going over to his house more and more, and just, he'd give me a pill, he'd give me 2 pills, and before you know it, he'd start asking me for money, and I'd start giving him a little bit of cash. And before I knew it, it became like an everyday thing.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much, got graduated to doing a lot more milligrams, I guess you could say, until that was getting a little bit tough to keep affording. So that's what led me to heroin, unfortunately. And that was my drug of choice. Mm-hmm. Now, like I said, I have a long history with it, with narcotics in general. I started off about 16 years old, in high school, just drinking and smoking pot.
Yeah.
Just like all my other friends would do. The only difference was I was starting to notice that, they'd go home the next day after a party and they'd pop a couple aspirin and just kind of take it easy. But I'd find myself, picking up that bottle again in the morning and just trying to do what they call a hair of the dog.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure you guys are familiar. Yeah. And from there, basically, I'd start drinking socially, but I'd also start drinking by myself at my house. If I'm watching a game, I would just start drinking. Now, I wouldn't be just having a beer or two here. I'd be drinking straight liquor to the point where my friends would actually come over and make fun of me for it in a joking way. Mm-hmm. They said, "Are you really drinking water, or is that something different?"
Yeah.
So all the signs were there that I was having some issues, but I wasn't really ready to give it up. I was kind of looking at it as a reward. Like, I would come home from a long day at work, and I would just start pouring myself some vodka. Mm-hmm. And I would drink all the way up until about bedtime, and then wake up the next morning, go to work like a functional human being. Right after work, bang, right back to the bottle again. So again, around 2009, I'd say, right after the Phillies won the World Series in 2008, I'll never forget I got introduced to my neighbor. Yeah, it was a good time, but it was a bad time, because that's around the time I got introduced to my neighbor. Mm-hmm. And like I said, he gave me a couple of Percocet, a couple of Vicodin, and slowly graduated into getting every few days, and then starting to get it every single day. Mm-hmm. And that kind of went on through 2009, 2010, 2011, even into 2012. And found myself to the point where I was basically buying a bunch of pills and giving them to my friends for about $5 more. That's the only way I was able to sustain that habit.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I never considered myself a dealer. I always considered myself helping a friend out. Me and myself, I could sleep better that way, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
So that's the way I kind of sustained my habit. Now, after a few friends got sober, you call them friends, quote unquote friends, got sober, the supply kind of dried out a little bit, and I had to figure out alternative methods, and that's when I, kind of fell into the heroin world. And going to the city, Kensington area in Philadelphia, all the time just to pick up. Mm-hmm. to the point. And I would also lend my car out to my people so they will go down for me.
Mm-hmm.
And mind you, this whole time I'm a functioning addict. I'm going to work all day.
Yep. Oh yeah.
Going to pick up after work, come home. My wife, my son, I know I was trying to act as normal as I could possibly act during that time, but everybody knew there was something off about me.
Yeah.
My wife knew I was a pretty big drinker, but she had no clue that I was taking pills.
Yeah.
Or even that I graduated into heroin.
Mm-hmm.
So around early 2000 or late 2012, early 2013, I was actually just searching YouTube because I had gotten sick a few days prior to that, and I wasn't sure why.
Mm-hmm.
I started to get the sniffles, and I started to get flu-like symptoms, and I was just really confused because I had no clue about withdrawals at the time.
Yeah.
So I'm just like searching through YouTube, and I'm just trying to figure out what's going on with me, and I end up finding a channel with a gentleman who was explaining the whole withdrawal process and everything like that.
Mm.
And one video led to another, and he kind of started talking about recovery.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of was a little bit interested in, a little interest in what he was saying. Start watching it every day for a little bit. And then, like I said, around in late 2012, 2013, I decided to give it a shot.
Mm-hmm.
I gave recovery a shot. Lasted about 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I went right back, and for that whole about year and a half, 2 years there, I was a chronic relapser.
Yeah.
I would get about a month clean, maybe 2 months tops, and then I would relapse again.
Mm-hmm.
So finally, what really took me out of addiction and where the story goes to recovery is April 24th, 2014 was my wedding anniversary.
Mm.
I was happy. I was sober for maybe 4 or 5 months at the time. Just really happy about taking her away to a really nice bed and breakfast.
Mm-hmm.
Something in my addict mind, though, clicked when I was on my way home from work, and I stopped at the liquor store and bought myself a little bit of rum.
Yep.
Yeah. So one thing led to another. As you can imagine, a couple hours waiting for her to get showered and dressed and ready to go. I'm sitting there sipping on my rum.
Mm-hmm.
We get to the bed and breakfast. We go out to dinner. She sits down. I go, I'm going to go to the bathroom real quick. I go to the bathroom, stop back. Before I go back to the table, I go to the bar. And I got a double shot of whiskey.
Mm.
Last thing I remember for that whole night.
Ooh.
Apparently, 2 waiters had to carry me out of the restaurant. This is on my wedding anniversary.
Jesus.
Yeah, and we got back to the bed and breakfast, and this is all coming from my wife's account because I don't remember any of it, that I basically slept in the car for about 3 hours overnight.
Oh.
So that was my rock bottom. To ruin her wedding anniversary with another relapse. That was the last straw.
Mm-hmm.
So again, that was April 24th. April 25th, I had a couple of shots in the morning just to kind of kill the hangover. And then later that day, we're walking around, and I'm just like, I seriously, I cannot do this to her anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I can't do this to her, and I can't do this to my son.
Yeah.
And from, like I said, April 26th moving forward, I got into a fellowship. I got on quick Suboxone taper to help me with the withdrawals, and been clean and sober ever since, except for one bad night in 2017 when I found myself back down in Kensington again. Now, people ask me, well, how did you find yourself down in Kensington and mess up again, but you still say you have a clean date of 2014? And I tell them, because I slipped up, I didn't relapse. It's all part of the recovery process. Not everybody goes through that, but we all know it is a very common aspect, especially when you're dealing with opiates. So, I have not relapsed. I have not gone on a binge. I have not had any issues since 2014 except for one night, by myself down in the city. And even then, I talked myself into coming home.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been really proactive ever since. Just been trying to mentor people that are in new recovery, trying to get through the acute stage of withdrawal, trying to get through the mental torture after the cravings and things like that. I'm just trying to do my part in the recovery world because I've seen just how bad and grimy you can get.
Oh yeah.
I've seen really good people turn really bad, do really bad things. I've lost just about every friend I've ever had to this disease, whether it be through jail or through death. So I really have nobody from that past life left. I'm one of the lucky ones that get out. Some people say I'm blessed. Some people said I was smart to get out when I did. I call myself lucky, and that I'm still here. I believe that there's a higher power that wants me to do something to help.
Yeah.
Not in it for the wealth. I'm not in it for the notoriety. I don't care. I just want to help. I've spent so many of my years taking from my family, taking money, taking time, taking things that didn't belong to me.
Yeah.
I'm spending the rest of my life to serve others and to help, whether it be in the recovery community or just in general. So, and I want to let everybody know that, there's a lot of underlying mental illnesses that go into this substance abuse. So I really think it's important that people not only get clean, but also get the follow-up they need. Because I know if I just would have stopped using and I wouldn't have gotten any kind of aftercare, any kind of fellowship, any kind of therapy, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you guys tonight sober.
Yeah.
So it's so important. It was such an important part of my recovery process, that aftercare.
Yeah.
That accountability. Someone to check up on me, someone to make sure I was doing all right, someone I could vent to, someone that understands, because that's so important. Because when I was going through my worst of it, I would hide all my feelings, and I would just eventually explode, and that's just not healthy at all.
Yeah.
My sponsor, unfortunately, passed away about 6 months ago. Yeah, and I'm very thankful for the sober time I had, because I was able to cope with that without reverting back to using again. It's one of the things, that I will always thank him for, is teaching me different ways to cope without going back to use. I've had my mother pass away from alcoholism while I've been sober. I had my grandmother pass away when I was sober, and now I had my sponsor pass away when I was sober, and that's on top of all the friends that died from drug-related stuff. So.
Yeah.
But through my recovery, through my higher power, and through my fellowship, I know there's a light at the end of the tunnel for people that are in early recovery, because I am proof of it. I'm sitting here 5 years sober talking to you guys, and I'm blessed to be alive. And again, I don't want to ramble on about the same stuff, so it's pretty much my share.
All right.
That's great.
Yeah, man. Good stuff.
Great. Lots of questions.
Well, then fire away, Eric.
You don't want to go first?
I'll give you the floor.
You didn't even let me say my name. Like, in the beginning, man. All right.
Okay.
So you were talking about kind of how you had the house, and you have the kid, and you have the wife, and you have the job. And, you were still using, but you were able to maintain an outward facade of normalcy.
You're taking my question.
So that's something I can really relate to. Like, I have the house, I have the car, I have the wife, but I'll go into like
addict, right?
Yeah, exactly, right. And how one of the things I worked on with my sponsor a little while ago is because I remember I'd come back into the rooms and I had just bought a house. And it's like, well, how am I, how do you get over the fact that like you're coming in the rooms and it's like my life is unmanageable, but I just bought a house and like my bills are paid and all this.
Right.
And is there like, how do you get past the unmanageability and the powerlessness when, your life might not be unmanageable, it might be mismanaged, right? Like, how can you get past kind of that? Because that can be like a hard stepping stone when you have that outward facade that like everything's fine.
Oh, sure. And it's very humbling when you put it out there that, my life is, like you said, possibly not unmanageable, but just very mismanaged and very, very cluttered. So you need to put your pride behind you. You need to be humble, and you need to just be thankful that you're alive, and be honest and be open, especially in fellowship and different things like that. Let them know, because not every addict. People have a picture of an addict sitting on a street corner and torn up clothes and dirty and hasn't showered in 2 weeks. That's not the majority of us.
Yep.
The majority of us, in some way, shape, or form, are able to keep an outward resemblance of normalcy. So you just need to be honest with people, need to be open with them. And I think that's a big hurdle a lot of people have to go through, is swallowing their pride.
absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let me take the floor from Eric. I got a couple questions. So when you were like a teenager, what was like the mitigating? Were there any mitigating factors, or what was like ultimately what made you try that first
Yeah.
drink or that first drug?
Well, coming from where I was actually in Catholic school for 8 years. So
Okay.
I was bullied a lot. So I didn't have like really any friends. So come ninth grade, I actually went to public school. And out of the blue, I was like the new kid. So like everybody was talking to me, and I was basically like getting popular. And I kind of went along with it because my whole life I was dealing with being bullied. My parents have gotten divorced when I was 10. I had never talked about it to anybody. So when I was able to actually get people to talk to me and people to actually like want to hang out with me, I was like, yo, I'm down for anything you guys want to do.
Yeah.
I'm a kid of the elementary school days in the late 80s, early 90s with the DARE program. So I was actually scared of drugs. But it's crazy the stuff they'll do just to try to fit in.
Yeah. All right.
Sick of being bullied. I was sick of not having any friends, and sick of being made fun of because of my glasses or this, that, or the other. So I was willing to do whatever it took.
All right. And like throughout active addiction, like you talked about, like you said, you had those first like withdrawal symptoms and you didn't know what was happening.
Yeah.
At any point before that, did you ever like think to yourself, like you talked about how like friends would like make jokes about your drinking and stuff like that, but did you ever yourself think you had a problem?
Yes. There was a few times where I wanted to tell somebody that I felt like this wasn't normal. That people don't typically fill their water bottles with vodka.
Yeah.
But then, then the next day, you don't tell anybody that night. The next day comes, and you just kind of keep moving on. So yeah, I did have a little bit of self-awareness that I had a problem.
Yeah.
But I was definitely not fully ready to admit it yet.
All right.
It's kind of tough to hide that when your friends are literally sitting there next to you making fun of you for doing it. So.
Oh yeah, and like alcohol like smells so much. Like
it's tough to hide.
It's very obvious,
especially liquor.
Yeah, especially liquor. Yeah.
Especially liquor, and trust me, I would make sure that it was the clear liquor so it looked like water.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, you could say the other ones were like apple juice or something. No.
Well, that's true too. Yeah, I'm sure I've done iced tea in my day too. But yeah, always that clear rum in my my water bottle, man. I'll never forget it. Like people just being like, "Hey, it's just Dan drinking his water," ha ha ha. Making fun of me, and I would just keep doing it until, like I said, it just got unmanageable.
All right, Eric, what else you got?
So, I guess moving down the list here, this is a question I feel like that comes up, and I mean, I know a few people from Philly, so that Kensington, I've heard that before. So, I don't want to. I guess this is kind of everyone has a different bottom, right? And you're kind of talking about your bottom, and your bottom is your bottom, and it's specific to you. Do you ever feel like, because you were describing kind of the image of a junkie, right, or the image of an addict, do you feel like your bottom wasn't enough sometimes, or do you feel like the emotional pain that you put your like family through and just that night, like was that enough of a bottom to keep you grounded?
Yeah, it was. And I'll tell you what actually proved it to me was that one trip I made to Kensington, I met a guy down there. We were chatting. He came from a pretty high class upbringing, actually. And he was living in a tent right on Kensington Ave. And, at that moment, I was telling myself, I cannot do this. I cannot leave my wife. I cannot leave my son and live down here like this. I just can't do it. Like, I love them too much. I've worked so hard for everything I got. I can't let this drug take everything from me. So, yeah, that was bottom enough for me. Just, I have such love for my family. That was a bottom enough for me. I'm one of the lucky ones that didn't have to lose their family over this. Very close to losing them, but I didn't. And thinking about life in what they call tent city, and thinking about how literally close I was to that. I could have just stayed there and never called again, never called home, and just continued to live that life. It cost $10 to get a tent at Walmart. I could have been down there in a minute. But so yeah, that's enough right there to that was enough of a bottom for me to make sure I never pick up a drink or drug again for as long as I live. So help me God, I'm going to die sober. And that's positive reaffirmations every single day. I say that to myself because it's day by day.
Yeah. So
every day I tell myself that, and every day I think about Tent City, and I think about how close I came to that.
What else you got?
So I guess following up, I am kind of interested because this is one of the things, and this will have a follow-up question about something we kind of like about fellowships. We'll like refrain from terms, but I do have a question about that.
Sure.
But talking about the slip, right? So like in different fellowships, like, they are qualified in different ways. And even in, recovery terms, you can think of a slip and a relapse as different. Some would consider a slip a relapse, and some would consider it a slip. And I've heard both, and I like the term slip better than relapse because I do believe relapse actually connotates the actual, like a run, like you said.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, is there... I actually agree with you on this. I really like the way that you are kind of doing this because... So, I guess my question is, you slipped, right? So you did use.
Yes.
So how did you get past that, right? And like, because you're continuing on the same journey, right? And you messed up. So, but how did you get past the guilt and the shame of having a slip and not letting that guilt and shame turn into a run?
A lot of just mental toughness. I gave myself one day, the next day, to feel bad for myself and to cry and feel guilty. And my parents came over. My wife called them over. They were there that next morning to give me my lecture. And when you're in active addiction and you, quote unquote, get an intervention or get lectured, a lot of times you're just kind of one ear out the other. This time I actually listened, and I felt every word that they said to me, and I felt every bit of emotion that they had, and it just tore me to shreds. So I gave myself one day to just cry it out, let myself feel guilty, and I just got right back on. I'll be honest with you. I just got right back on. My wife pushed me to the meeting the next day, and I just got right back on. I just didn't let myself slip. A slip turned into a relapse.
Cool. And I guess another question, because you did mention the switching of fellowships to us before we got on. What led you to switch fellowships? I know we know a lot of people that we've been friends with who've switched fellowships. Like, why did you go from one fellowship to another?
Well, like you said, without using any names, let's say the first fellowship I went to, the rules are a little rigid for my standards per se. For example, I'm a big advocate of maintenance medication for those that need it. In that particular fellowship, they don't consider you clean. And that, to me, is one of my big principles, is the fact that if you are going to a methadone clinic every day, or if you're going to a Suboxone doctor once a month, and you're not out trying to get drugs every day and ruining your family's life, and you're not getting high, then you're staying clean. So kind of the rigid, that type of looking down or judgment on other people. For example, there's some people that might need psychiatric medication or something of that nature, and they look down on those types of people. Not generalizing, but sometimes
it definitely
they look down on
happens.
those types of people, and that's one of my key principles I don't believe in. So that's why I switched to the other fellowship that is much more open and understanding of all shapes and sizes of recovery.
All right.
Yeah, I like the shapes and sizes part. We've
Yeah,
had
because
one
there is no
other
one size
person
fits all.
from this. Well, we've had one other person from your fellowship on our pod, and I do
nice.
like the inclusiveness. You know, like
Yes.
I mean, David and I are in the same fellowship,
Yes.
and even like someone, just to give an example, someone in our like if someone was a cutter, right? Like they might be looked at differently and might not even be like fully
It might be seen as like an
yeah,
outside issue.
as like you don't want
Right.
to hear it, right? Like
Yeah.
it's not about drugs or alcohol, so it's like we don't want to hear about it, but it's about the feelings.
Yeah.
So
It's-
it's yeah, I just like the inclusive, because it's all about, at the end of the day, it's about the feelings. It's not about like what we did.
Yep.
Exactly, because we all went down. We're all there for the same reason.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we may have all taken different paths. We all may be having different ways of resolving that, but we're all in that fellowship for the same reason, and that's to not only stay sober, but to get healthier spiritually and mentally and emotionally.
Exactly.
All right. I got a question. So you said, like in your story that like, your wife was aware that you were like a drinker and like you were kind of a heavy drinker, but she was kind of unaware of all the like the pills and the heroin and all that.
Yep.
How important was it to and challenging was it to really come clean and reveal that like truth to her, and like how did she take it, and like how did that sort of fall out?
Well, I mean, I was scared. I was just shaking. Like when I went to tell her, she's had no history with that whatsoever. She had no way to even fathom what I was even talking about.
Yeah.
She couldn't believe it, because she had that conception of, well, you can't be an addict. You're not living in the middle of the inner city, homeless, sitting in a town, like, because she had that generalization. So it really, I don't know if she really knew how to take it right away.
Yeah.
For me, I just laid it all out there for her. I cried. I just gave myself up to her and just said, I'm coming clean to you because I love you. I want to have a future with you. I want, us to have a long, healthy future. And then from that point on, it was really about just kind of educating her, but not forcing her.
Yeah, yeah.
Suggesting Al-Anon, type of things, or other type of things that you can do with other people that have been in that situation. Again, without naming names too much. So basically I got her watching, before I knew it, she was watching YouTube videos on post-acute withdrawal syndrome and, how to deal with someone who is, newly sober. So it took every ounce of my energy to tell her, because I didn't know if she was going to stay or go. But when she decided to stay and educate herself, I mean, it made me realize I married the right person, and God really did put the right person in my life for me. Because anybody else would have just said, "See you later, dude. I'm not messing around with you."
Yeah.
And at that point, we were only married for a few years. It wasn't like a 25, 30-year marriage. So, but she decided to tough it through, and it was really hard on her. But through education, through being just very open, and I got to say, being open is so important.
Oh, yeah.
Because especially when you're in early recovery, it's tough. I mean, I don't blame her, but she took over the bills. She took my name off the bank account, temporarily, just because she just didn't want me to have any access to money, and I totally understood that. There was that period where if I went to pick up a pizza, she came with me.
Yeah.
And I could have grumbled under my breath, and I could have been like, "Leave me alone." But no, I understood. Like, I was so thankful that she was still around after all that, that I was willing to do whatever it took. Whatever it took. She was the first one to go to a meeting with me.
Nice.
That's awesome.
All right.
Yeah.
And I
to come from absolutely nothing about drugs to go into meetings is a big step.
Oh, yeah. I got a follow up to that. What sort of amends process has there been for like you and your wife and you and your son, and honestly, you and yourself. Like, how have you made amends for everything you went through and everything you put them through throughout addiction?
Yeah. Well, my son is the most important thing in the world, and I actually sat him down and I told him about everything. He's 18 now.
Okay.
But back then he was a younger teenager. And I didn't sugarcoat anything from him. A darn thing. I told him everything. I showed him some stuff that he probably shouldn't have seen at that age. Some videos and some things. But I really wanted to not scare him per se, but just make him aware.
Yeah.
Of this type of life and how prevalent it was getting. And and I wanted to say I told him I was sorry. I told him all that as well. But just being there and being present for him was, over time, he started to see, okay, my dad's coming back. He's the old dad again. He's actually paying attention to me and things like that. But yeah, I can't stress this enough just sit the kids down and be honest with them. That was the best thing I think I ever did with him, because it really made me feel better and it made him aware and he understood versus just silently hating me for it.
Yeah.
Making amends to myself, I'll be honest with you, like I try to keep a positive mindset, and I just kind of live that serve life. Like I just want to, my wife needs anything, I'm going to help her out. My kids need anything, I'm going to help him out. Like I just keep it positive. I just go one day at a time. For every day that I messed up and I was selfish, I'm giving a week back to them.
Yeah.
I took and took and took, and now I'm going to give. And that's how I make amends with myself.
Perfect.
By not being complacent and keep giving back.
All right.
Give back my time and my energy.
What else you got, Eric?
So I guess sticking with kind of your son and kind of being honest and telling the truth. Do you worry that he might become an addict or have that gene?
He actually hates drugs. Even right now, he is completely against them because he saw what they did to my life. He saw, and he saw what happened to us financially, how it was a struggle to pay some of the bills when I was in active addiction. He didn't know I was addicted at the time, but now in retrospect, he knows now why the cable bill got shut off all those times.
Yeah.
He knows now why the oil didn't get filled on time. He knows all those things now. So he's an advocate of sobriety. He's a senior in high school now. He actually has a club he belongs to after school for like kids against the opiate epidemic. I can't think of the actual name of the club, but they actually proactively like do things in the high school to help out with the opiate problem.
Oh, that's cool.
Nice.
So so he's really he took it a lot better than I thought he would. And like I say, he has, and I can't predict his future, and I know he's going to turn 21, and I know his college buddies are going to, but making him aware that this is in his family, and it's because I believe part of it might even be a little bit hereditary. I don't have the science to back that up, but I do believe that, and I wanted to make him very aware of that. And I think that kind of scares him a little bit to know that his dad was an addict, his grandma was an alcoholic, and even his uncle on the other side was an alcoholic as well. So it's kind of been surrounded by that, unfortunately.
All right.
But I'm hoping by the past and everything that he's seen, that he'll keep up that sobriety. Keep advocating for sobriety and for what he's doing in his high school now. So I think it's awesome that he's part of a group of kids that are willing to help other kids out or going through issues like this.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
That's absolutely amazing. All right. I got one final question for you. How has any sort of like addictive behavior, how has that manifested itself since you've been in recovery? I mean, like beyond like just drugs or alcohol.
My recovery, it's funny, is actually one of the big things that is like my new kind of I like to do things on YouTube. I have my own blog. I like to write. So, I just like to write and just be very proactive in the recovery community. That's like my, I don't want to say obsession, but that's the closest thing I have to an addiction at this point, in a positive way.
Yeah.
Right now I do the whole white collar 9 to 5 thing, but eventually I do want to get out of that cubicle and get into doing something in the recovery world, full time every day, But for right now, I spend every waking moment that I'm not with my family or not at work, doing something recovery related.
Yeah.
Well, minus a couple hours. I like to watch college basketball, but other than that.
All right. You have a final question, Eric?
No, you took mine. That was gonna be my last question.
I took the final
Stealing from it.
Man.
All right. Nothing else? Nothing?
Let me think about this. I'm trying to think if there's like a Philly related question I could ask. I don't know.
That's one thing I know a lot about.
Do you watch the show It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia?
Ooh, good question.
I have, yeah.
Which character
I don't watch.
do you most identify with?
That's a weird question.
Wow.
That's not a weird question.
Actually, that's a tough one because like I said, I've watched it, but I'm not I don't watch it a lot. Yeah, so that one, unfortunately, I'm going to have to take a pass on that one. Just
That's
because I don't
fair.
know the characters a lot.
That's fair.
Except for, obviously, Danny DeVito, I know, but
Ooh.
But I will tell you, they do depict Philly in a pretty good light, so.
Yeah.
So I do have a
a
Philly question.
very true light.
So I have a Philly question. You're an Eagles fan?
Big time, I believe green.
Okay.
Nice.
Okay. So how you feeling about Carson Wentz?
Praying he's not going to be injury prone his whole career, because if he's not going to be injury prone, he's going to win us another Super Bowl or two. But it really depends on if he's going to be that type of quarterback that gets hurt every single year.
Yeah.
Because we've seen some great talent, go by the wayside just because of injuries.
Oh, yeah.
And to kind of wrap that into a recovery standpoint, I also did want to bring up one of the biggest struggles that I personally had, and this might sound funny, was watching the Eagles sober.
Ooh, no, I can relate to this.
Oh, yeah. Yep, 100%.
For so many years, that was my thing. That was I would literally wake up, have a case of beer in the fridge, and I would be ready to rock. We would tailgate 10 a.m. for a 1 o'clock game, and I would be so drunk by the time the game started, I wouldn't remember what happened.
Yeah.
So one of the great blessings of recovery was that I was stone cold sober and when they won the Super Bowl.
That's awesome.
I was able to remember every second of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Something that I never would have done 10 years ago,
Yeah. I had about, 60 days clean when the Ravens won their Super Bowl in 2012.
Where was that again?
2013.
Was that in the Superdome? I think
Shut up,
I
Eric.
was there.
Yeah, Eric was
I
there.
there?
Fuck you,
I was
Eric.
there. Yeah. I can relate to that.
Did you buy the tickets, Eric?
Well,
No,
it was
you
a season
didn't.
ticket. It's fine. Don't worry about it.
I was going to say, when the Phillies won the World Series in 2008, I don't remember much about that.
Yeah. You got us beat there. The Orioles are awful.
It's hard though
Yeah, I've
to
been down to
stay.
Camden Yards. It's beautiful, though.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Beautiful stadium, and that's about all we got.
I think what you were saying
You guys kind of lost your stars. Yeah.
I think what you were saying
Back
about
onto the topic.
being sober for
life.
for games, but for games,
yeah,
but for
absolutely.
games, it's really difficult for me to go to a Ravens game.
Really?
It is ever since I got clean, the first real time I got clean back in 2012, it has been incredibly hard to go to games.
Really?
Isn't it hard when you park your car and you see all those empty beer cans as you walk towards the stadium and you see everybody partying and screaming and this?
There was an ice luge at the last game I went to next to my dad's van,
Really?
an ice luge, and I was just
Wow.
this is a
wow.
college party.
Yeah.
I was I'm just
Yep.
not. I'm not in this mind zone any. I just can't.
And that's fine, man. And that's fine. I don't go to games anymore, to be honest with you, unless I'm with my wife or I'm with my dad. That's the only time I'll ever go to a Phillies, Flyers, Sixers. Can't afford the Eagles, but other sports, I don't go to games if it's not with somebody that's an accountability partner, someone that won't let me slip up and have a drink, which will turn into 10, which will turn into heroin.
No, yeah, it's hard. I totally can relate to kind of that. Watching the games sober, like it's very hard.
People laugh like it's a way to break the ice a little bit, but in all seriousness, I can tell you're a huge sports fan, and it is. It's one of the toughest challenges we do because that's part of our rituals. That's what we grew up doing in high school, college, and our 20s.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. Eric and I are both season ticket holding Ravens fans, and I'm kind of the opposite of you guys. I still go to don't miss a Ravens home game ever. And when I go there, I actually get a shot of hope because I see all these drunken idiots who are falling downstairs, getting arrested, doing dumb shit.
Yeah.
And it's just wow, I'm really glad that I don't do that anymore. And it's really kind of a reaffirmation to me. I don't have to be that guy anymore because that guy's a fat slob who sucks. And I'm happy I'm not that guy anymore.
Yep. And I actually I get where you're coming from too. Just a real quick story. My wife and I went down to Philly 2 years ago, was it maybe for New Year's?
Mm-hmm.
And we were sober. We watched the fireworks. And we got back to the hotel, and there was this drunk guy in the elevator just babbling on and drooling on himself. And you're right. It was a positive affirmation. It was wow, I'm actually going to wake up tomorrow morning and not be hungover on New Year's Day.
Yeah.
So it depends, I guess. It depends on your personality, but I was able to do that and laugh at the drunken people, but I can't. Sports, for some reason, it's a tough thing for me.
No, yeah, I hear you. And people around the world, it's in Canada, it's hockey. Out in Europe, it's football or soccer. And it's a big part of every culture everywhere. And alcohol certainly is pretty much prevalent at all of them. And if you're go ahead.
You're right. It's part of not only American culture, but the world's culture.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So being able to sort of integrate ourselves back into there it can go either way. We can see a positive perspective about not being that person anymore, or it could be a really big temptation for us.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah, it could definitely be a trigger, and that's what everybody needs to find out for themselves, because everybody's, you said it between the both of you, you both are complete opposite on the subject. So you see it's different with everybody,
Yeah.
So you just gotta have to see what works for you, see what works for you in recovery. And the biggest thing I know, and I'm sure you guys know too, is to make sure that when you do find out that something triggers you, that you don't do it, repeat, you take that part out of your life. That if something's going to trigger you, just don't even let it entertain you.
Yep.
Don't entertain you.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I would literally, if I got a phone call tomorrow morning from my buddy saying he has tickets to go see Bryce Harper play in the Phillies, I would say no, because I know that, unless it's my wife or my dad or somebody from my fellowship, if it's somebody from, say, high school or college, I wouldn't go, because I know that that's a possible trigger for me.
Yeah. All right, Dan. Well, you said you were a blogger and a YouTube guy, so now there's also the opportunity for you to sort of plug your stuff on our show. So plug away, buddy.
Hey, appreciate it, guys. You can check me out on YouTube at Addicted to Recovery, and my blog, WeDoRecoverToday.com. Again, that's WeDoRecoverToday.com.
Nice.
Check it out. My own personal stories, tips on how to survive the holidays. I mean, A to Z, I got it all for you guys. And, and of course, YouTube, Instagram I have as well, Twitter at WeDoRecover.
Nice.
Nice.
Perfect.
Awesome. Check that out.
All right. Well, now's we're winding down the show, and we're going to give you your last moment to give your final experience, strength, and hope for anybody listening out there who's struggling with addiction or new to recovery or anywhere they are in their recovery. What do you have to say for all of them?
All I have to say for all of them is just keep moving forward and take it not even one day at a time, take it 1 hour at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are struggling to maintain any type of clean time, like I said, just do not give up. Keep pushing forward. it does get better. It will finally click. It might take 5 times. It may take just once. Who knows? But you got to keep moving, keep going, keep positive.
Yeah.
You know, go on YouTube. Check out some recovery stuff. Check, get involved. You can't just drop the drug and expect everything else to go away.
Yeah.
And I want to tell everybody in early recovery that, that yes, drop the drugs, but please go to fellowships. Go talk to somebody.
Yep.
Have some kind of an aftercare program, because you do need to change your perspective, not only your perspective on your life, but you literally have to change the people, places, and things.
Absolutely.
So if you're out there and you got a few days clean and you're struggling, just remember, if one day is too much, take it 1 hour at a time.
Yeah. All right. Awesome,
and
man.
we do recover.
Absolutely. All right, man. Well, I would like to thank our guest, Dan, for joining us today. Golf clap, Eric. It's terrible.
It's wonderful.
It's terrible
Love
golf clap.
Yeah, it was a pleasure speaking with you guys.
Absolutely, man. Let me wrap us up real quick. Here at Podcast Recovery, we are aiming to expand the scope of support for recovering addicts. Accessibility and convenience of helpful services is paramount to combating addiction. We work to bring the message of hope, bring the message of recovery to every addict, wherever and whenever it is needed. We believe that a powerful voice of recovery should be obtainable, practical, and at the touch of a button. Every addict deserves to hear a message of hope, and Podcast Recovery is here to provide it. All right, everyone, thanks for joining us. Follow us on Twitter, check us out on Facebook. Soon we'll have Instagram and a YouTube channel and all that good stuff. Like us, subscribe us, invite your friends, listen to Dan's episode, and all right, everybody out there, stay safe, stay clean.